The Specialized Extra-Curricular Execution Squad, or SEES, is an organization of Persona users led by the daughter of the Kirijo Group's president, Mitsuru Kirijo. She operates SEES as an after-school club that has one aim and one aim only: to get rid of the 25th hour that has plagued the world. We're all familiar with how the Pokemon world works. I mean, we've done at least one of these things: play the games, watched the animes and movies, read the manga, and whatnot. In Pokemon's 27 years of existence, we've all thought about what it's like to be a Pokemon trainer. Heck, we even thought about what Pokemon a certain character from a different franchise or story could have. Even during Pokemon Go's release, we've all thought about what team certain characters from the Pokemon Anime and Manga series or even from other stories would join. Team Valor, Team Mystic, or Team Instinct. In this crossover, what if the members of SEES were Pokemon trainers? Greetings everyone, this is Under the Sun and I'm your host Riku and you're watching Crossover. Like with various Pokemon, various personas have their own elemental affinities. As such, we'll be adding a new rule to the existing rules of this Pokemon crossover. The new rule, on top of having a team of 6 Pokemon, with none of them being legendaries, each character's Pokemon team has a Pokemon type or two to which a character is mostly attuned. So if a persona's skill set is mostly dealing fire damage, then that character who has that particular persona would have a team of fire type Pokemon. Of course, there are exceptions to each rule, that being persona characters who awoke to the full arcana would not have any Pokemon type specialty and may or may not have a legendary Pokemon on their team. Before we start with the Pokemon teams, let's talk about the dog in the room, Koromaru. SEES has a canine member that has endeared himself to everyone on the team. In this particular crossover, where all animals are Pokemon themselves, we need to assign a Pokemon equivalent to Koromaru. Among the dog-like Pokemon, I feel like Houndoom fits Koromaru to a T. Koromaru's skill set consists of darkness or curse attacks and fire attacks, and Houndoom is a dark fire type Pokemon. Right at the end, I'm enumerating other dog-like Pokemon that were also contenders for being a Koromaru equivalent before deciding on Houndoom. With that out of the way, let's start this off with the SEES members in their senior year, starting with Akihiko Sanada. Akihiko's persona, Holy Deuces, and its ultimate form, Caesar, deals mostly physical, specifically strike, damage, and lightning elemental damage. As such, Akihiko's team would consist of fighting type and electric type Pokemon. Akihiko has a Hitmonchan on his team, referencing his sport, boxing. Hariyama and Lucario, on the other hand, reference the strike skills his persona can do. The Alolan Golem and Heliolisk in his team reference the lightning attacks his persona can dish out in battle, while Pomok references the type of attacks his persona can do, electric and strike attacks. Mitsuru Kirijo is up next. Her persona evolves from Penthesilea to Artemisia. Her persona deals ice elemental damage, Hence, her entire Pokemon team would consist of Ice-type Pokemon. Mitsuru has a Frostlass that references the feminine design of her initial and ultimate personas. And one of the Pokemon's Pokédex entry references one obscure line by Mitsuru when talking about executions. Frostlass's Pokemon Sun Pokédex entry says, when it finds humans or Pokemon it likes, it freezes them and takes them to its chilly den, where they become decorations.
Very well. It's been a while since we had an execution. Would you rather be a throw rug or displayed as an ice sculpture? Now choose.
The ultimate choice.
Her Mr. Rhyme, specifically the Pokemon's Cane, references Penthesileia's sword and her own sword whenever she battles. Her Cryogonal references Artemisia's whip, specifically on how Cryogonals capture prey. Cryogonal's Pokemon Violet Pokédex entry says Cryogonal uses its chains of ice to constrict its opponents and then flash freezes them where they stand. Her Alolan Ninetales and Glaceon all exude elegance, just like how Mitsuru and her persona exude an air of elegance in battle. Her Lapras reference Mitsuru's persona's analytical clairvoyance as Death Battle described her support abilities. Lapras's Pokemon Yellow Pokédex entry states, a gentle soul that can read the minds of people. It can ferry people across the sea on its back. Next on the line is Shinjiro Aragaki, and we are hitting a snag. Shinjiro's persona, Castor, mostly deals physical damage. As such, his Pokemon team should consist of fighting-type Pokemon. Here's the thing, Shinjiro has trouble controlling his persona. He can manage it most of the time, but there are times when his control slips. And one of those times was when it left a casualty. To help better control his persona, he took some drastic actions to get a better hold of Castor. However, it had the unfortunate side effect of lessening his lifespan. You would think Poison-type Pokemon would be a good fit, but not exactly. Poison-type Pokemon heal when they're doused with poison, essentially having the opposite effect compared to other types of Pokemon when they're poisoned. I gave it much thought, and I think, considering how dark Shinjiro's circumstance is, I think his Pokemon team would consist of dark and normal types. Shinjiro's Kangaskhan and Blissey reference Shinjiro's caring nature, the way he's gentle towards Koromaru and how he is the group's professional caretaker, to the point where he's fussing over his teammates, over their meals and overall health, especially if that certain someone would dump protein powder on his food. His Pangoro references his persona skills in battle, dealing strike damage on the enemy. His Obstagoon, Shiftry, and Tyranitar reference the fear that Castor generates whenever Shinjiro loses control of his persona. Speaking of casualty, the unfortunate casualty of Shinjiro's persona going berserk was a woman. She was Ken Amada's mother, and he is next on the list. Ken is a special case, but we will get to how special his case is after we introduce most of his Pokemon team. His persona, which evolved from Nemesis to kala-nemi, deals lightning and light elemental damage, as his Pokemon team would consist of electric type and the Pokemon type that best represents light and blast attacks, fairy type Pokemon. Ken's amp form, Toxtricity, represents his toxic thinking and his vengeful state after the tragedy. His Rotom references the innocence he lost from the tragedy. His Emolga represents the innocence he partially gained when he bonded with the members of SEAS. His Vikavolt is a reference to his fondness of superhero media, specifically in the tokusatsu genre, that he tries to hide in order to seem more mature than his peers. His Gardevoir is a reference to Nemesis' origin as the goddess of divine retribution and is the persona of a boy, a grieving boy. What makes Ken's case a special one is that there is one Pokemon that best represents Ken's origins. That Pokemon is Cubone. You could even say that like Cubone, Ken is wearing a metaphorical skull when he vowed vengeance on his mother's killer. Up next are the juniors of Seas, starting with the group's support, Fuuka Yamagishi. Fuuka's persona Lucia and later Juno has support-based abilities. She can analyze the enemy's weaknesses, know what skill set they have, and even offer the occasional assistance in battle. A far cry from Mitsuru's support abilities. Considering the nature of her persona's, support nature, her Pokemon team would consist of Psychic-type Pokemon. Fuuka's Rioniclus references how she is inside her persona whenever she summons it. Her Slowking and or Beetle reference her technological knowledge and how she was able to operate her new abilities as soon as she was aware of them, despite not fully awakening to them yet. Her Gardevoir references the feminine design of her persona. Her Espeon and Mr. Mime reference her various support skills that aid everyone in battle. Next on the list is Junpei Iori. His Pokemon team would consist of Fire-type Pokemon, as his persona, which evolved from Hermes to Trismegistus, mostly dealt fire elemental damage. Junpei has an Alolan Marowak to reference the baseball batting moves he does despite holding a sword, with Alolan Marowak's bone as the bat. His Charizard references the design and attack animation of his persona while using its wings. His Blaziken and Infernape reference the physical nature of some of Junpei's attacks. His Blaze form Paldean Taurus and Ninetales reference the explosive nature of his attacks. Yukari Takiba is next, and she has a team of flying-type Pokemon. This is in lieu of her persona that evolved from Io to Isis, who is proficient in dealing damage to her enemies using the wind as her weapon. Her Gyarados references the cow head that Io's riding on. I could be seeing things, but I think there's a relative resemblance between Gyarados' head and the cow head that Io's riding on. Her Corviknight references how Io is on top of the cow, and Corviknights are used as mounts or air cabs to transport people around. Her Togekiss references the spread-out nature of Isis's wings. Her Talonflame and Pidgeot reference her fiery attitude when it comes to something she believes in. Her Mantine references her piercing attacks, like how Mantines get mistaken for a bird after it builds up speed and can fly over the surface of the water. Her Mantine also references her amicable attitude, like how Mantines do not mind the Remoraid attached to them. Mantine's Legends Arceus Pokédex entry states that this calm and gentle Pokemon swims gracefully through the sea. After building speed, it can leap out of the water. It is often misidentified as a bird Pokemon due to this behavior. Mantine's Pokemon Leaf Green Pokédex entry states that as it majestically swims, it doesn't care if Remoraid attached to it for scavenging its leftovers. Now, let's get to the characters who awoke to the full Arcana and become the wild cards. First, let's have the character who inherited her wild card ability, Aigis. Aigis' persona evolved from Palladion to Pallas-Athena, who deals mostly physical damage. However, Aigis is an android built to battle shadows. Hence, it is appropriate for her to have a team of Steel-type Pokemon. As stated earlier, the characters who are blessed with the wildcard ability may or may not have a legendary Pokemon on her team. Aigis has a Genesect, referencing her man-made nature. Her Melmetal references how she has the data and memories of past battle androids and incorporates them into her own. Melmetal evolved from Meltan, and Meltan's Pokemon Shield Pokédex entry states that they live as a group, but when the time comes, one strong Meltan will absorb all the others and evolve. Her Aggron references Palladion, specifically the horns, as Palladion attacks by piercing the enemy with its spear. Her Metagross and Empoleon reference Pallas-Athena. Metagross references Athena's shield, while Empoleon references Athena's spear. Her Tinkaton references Metis, her shadow, because like Tinkaton, Metis can hold a really huge hammer or axe with no problem. Now, we're down to the 2 wildcards of Seas. With Aigis having only inherited the wildcard ability, she is still beholden to a team of specific Pokemon type. For the remaining 2, they don't adhere to a specific Pokemon type. Makoto Yuki and Kotone Shiome all have the same Pokemon on their team, in part because both of them have the same personas, and in some interpretations, they are the same person. Their Malouetta references the persona Orpheus, while their Giratina references Thanatos. Their Silvally, on the other hand, references how they could change Arcana at any given time. Their Ditto references how they can change personas. Makoto's Greninja and Kotone's Cinderace reference the sports club they can join in school. Makoto could join the swimming club, while Kotone can join the volleyball club. And yes, soccer is different from volleyball, but it's still a Pokemon with a ball sport as an origin. Makoto has a cast form, referencing how he can change his attitude depending on who he talks to, like how cast form can change with the weather around them. Kotone's Mimikyu references how her upbeat attitude is like Mimikyu's smiling sack, so they can make friends with others. Now, let's go back to Koromaru. As stated earlier, I had a few contenders to be Koromaru's equivalent in the Pokemon world before I decided on Houndoom. My contenders were Growlithe, Stoutland, Greavard, and Herdier, and many others. Growlithe because of its fire typing, Stoutland because of its furry appearance, Herdier because it is small, Greavard because it references the monk that Koromaru waited for at the shrine. Ultimately, I went for Houndoom because of the dark typing. To recap, here are the Pokemon teams for each member of Seas. Akihiko's Pokemon team consists of Alolan Golem, Hariyama, Heliolisk, Hitmonchan, Lucario, and Pawmont. Mitsuru's Pokemon team consists of Alolan Ninetales, Cryogonal, Frostlass, Glaceon, Lapras, and Mr. Rime. Shinjiro's Pokemon team consists of Blissey, Kangaskhan, Obstagoon, Pangoro, Shiftry, and Tyranitar. Ken's Pokemon team consists of Cubone, Emolga, Gardevoir, Rotom, Ampform Toxtricity, and Vikavolt. Fuuka's Pokemon team consists of Espeon, Gardevoir, Mr. Mime, Orbeetle, Rioniclus, and Slowking. Junpei's Pokemon team consists of Alolan Marowak, Blaziken, Charizard, Infernape, Ninetales, and Paldean Taurus, Blaze form. Yukari's Pokemon team consists of Corviknight, Gyarados, Mantine, Pidgeot, Talonflame, and Togekiss. Aigis' Pokemon team consists of Aggron, Empoleon, Genesect, Melmetal, Metagross, and Tinkaton. Makoto's Pokemon team consists of Malouetta, Giratina, Silvally, Ditto, Greninja, and Cast Form. Kotone's Pokemon team consists of Malouetta, Giratina, Silvally, Ditto, Cinderace, and Mimikyu. And Koromaru is a Houndoom. And that is the Pokemon team each member of Seas would have if they were Pokemon trainers. Plus bonus Koromaru. And that is all I have for you today. See you again soon. Ciao, ciao!